Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Nowadays, can we just watch Star Wars movies?
Star Wars, not Star Wars. Star Wars.
All right. So let's talk about DNA. So your DNA is found in, like we just said, in your cells, in your chromosomes. And your DNA, even though it's physically really, really tiny, it stores all of the information that tells how to build you. It's kind of like the blueprint. So you may not really know what a blueprint is, but if a house is going to be built, they prepare what's called a blueprint. Instructions that tell exactly how to build that house, the dimensions, what material to make out of, how to put it all together. And so DNA is kind of like that. The DNA molecules, all the instructions about how to make you who you are. Okay? Specifies all the information that makes you who you are. Okay? And so the letters DNA stands for the name of the molecule. So DNA is a molecule, a very long molecule made out of these repeating units. Anyone have any idea what it stands for? It's 3 letters. It stands for deoxyribonucleic acid.
I was close.
What?
Yes. Deoxy
I was gonna say that too.
ribonucleic acid.
With no space.
There's a space after the nucleic.
Oh.
Deoxyribonucleic acid.
We have to know that?
You should recognize it. You don't have to spell it out. But.
And
And so we know that this DNA molecule is found in our cells, in the nucleus, in the chromosomes. That's what our chromosomes are made out of. They're made out of DNA. DNA was sort of discovered in the 1950s by these 2 scientists, James Watson and Francis Crick. They also were helped by some of the research of a woman named Rosalind Franklin. Watson and Crick won the Nobel Prize for discovering DNA. So when was Mendel, remember Mendel, when was he researching?
1950s.
Not 1950s.
1850.
18. So,
Are you serious?
it was a long time ago, in the 1800s. And as you know, Mendel knew about genetics. He came up with the ideas about dominant, recessive, and how traits are inherited. But he didn't know anything about DNA. It wasn't until about 100 years later scientists really discovered, oh, this is where this genetic information is stored, in this molecule that makes our chromosomes. And the interesting, what is this? Or this? What are these? How do you know that?
Because it's all twisted.
Yeah, because of the shape. DNA is a very specific shape. And even though you probably haven't really heard a whole lot about DNA, I would bet almost all of you know, when you look at this, you know, oh yeah, that's DNA. How do you know that?
because it's twisted.
Does anybody know? How does everyone know that that's the shape of DNA? Yeah?
Because we see pictures of it.
Yeah, like where, I'm just curious, like where would you see it? Okay?
You just told us.
Oh, but I think most people would know that before. Yeah? Is it in a movie? I'm not sure.
Yeah, they're in like some movies.
Yeah.
TV.
I was just curious. But anyway, there's a name for the shape. So how would you describe this shape? Spiral? Coil?
Twisty.
Did anyone ever go up a spiral staircase in like a house? Yeah, it's very similar to that. There's actually a name for that shape. It's called the double helix. It means two things twisting around each other. A DNA molecule is kind of like if you could take a ladder and then twist it. It's very similar to that.
What's the single?
It's just like this, like one coil. This is two sort of interweaving with each And so we know that our DNA has the code for our genes, our traits. So in my DNA, in my cells, is the genes that give me my hair color, my skin color. It's specified in that DNA molecule. And a DNA molecule is made of many smaller units kind of connected one on top of the other. Those smaller units are called nucleotides. A DNA molecule is made of millions of these nucleotides attached to each other. So when we look at, this is one nucleotide. Like I said, a single DNA molecule is made of millions of these connected. And I describe it sometimes the shape as the sun, a house, and a garage. Okay. Usually we have a circle, a shape, and then outside. And so there are three parts to a nucleotide. The circular part is called a phosphate. The part that's shaped like a house is a sugar, but it's a specific type of sugar called deoxyribose. And then there's this part over here, which is the base. Now the base, the phosphate and the sugar are always the same. Like this phosphate is the same as this phosphate, and this phosphate, and all the sugars are the same. But the bases, this is where there can be some variety. Because there's 4 possible bases that could be in a nucleotide. We abbreviate them with letters, A, T, G, and C. And those letters stand for the name of the chemical. A stands for adenine. T stands for thymine. G stands for guanine. And C stands for cytosine. Those are the 4 DNA bases.
Right.
And a DNA molecule, let me go back a minute.
No.
So a DNA molecule has 2 sides to it. And the bases make up the middle. But the bases match up together in a certain arrangement. A and T always match up together. We say they are complementary. And G and C always match up together. So if I look at this DNA molecule, the section to the right, what part of a nucleotide is this? Jasmine? That's a phosphate. What part is this?
What part is what?
This. Tyler? That's a sugar. What are these?
Base.
The bases. So DNA molecule has 2 sides to it. And if you notice, when one side has an A, the other side has a T. When one side has a C, the other side has a G. When one side has a G, the other one has a C. So they always match up in that specific way. A's with T's, G's with C's.
Like always like G with C.
Yep. So it's always adenine with thymine and cytosine with guanine. So again, you see another picture here. It shows the same kind of thing. We have the sides of the ladder, which are the phosphate and the sugars, and then we have the rungs of the ladder. Those are the bases. So if you look at the key, this is cytosine, that's guanine. Cytosine, guanine, cytosine, guanine, cytosine, guanine, cytosine, guanine, etc. They always match up together.
So where's the other one?
The other what? So what that means is if you know 1/2 of a DNA molecule, you know the other half. So let's say I have one half of DNA molecule. It's ATA, TCA, TGC, GTG. Can you figure out what the other bases are on the opposite side?
Yeah.
What would the first three be? Raise your hand if you could tell me the first three. Tyler?
ATA.
Well, that's this one, but the one that matches up with the partners wouldn't be exactly the same. It would be the opposite. Isaiah? It'd be T, A, T. Because remember, A and T go together, T and A go together.
I didn't get what you
How about the next three? T, C, A. Madison?
AGT.
A, G, T. Right. Because A's and T's always go together, G's and C's always go together.
Wait, what?
A and T go together, so if this is a T, that's an A. This is a C, that's a G. A,
Oh, so just swapping.
yeah, they're just matching. How about the third one, Bella? ACG. Tyler, how about the last one?
CAC.
Correct. So we can predict, if we know one side, we can predict what the other side is. Avian?
Or is there a backup?
Don't worry about it. So again, just another view of a DNA molecule, a double helix, two sides wrapping around each other, two halves, and we have T on one half, we have A in the other, and that's a DNA molecule. All right, so how does this molecule make who we are? So if you were to look at the letters in my DNA, the A's, T's, C's, and G's, if you were like to read all of my DNA from my cells, it would be millions of letters long, A, T, T, G, C, 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 A, G, and so on, millions of times. The order of those letters gives me my traits, makes me who I am, tells how to build my body, how to give me a certain color of hair, how to give me a certain skin color, what the structure of my face is, and how my body produces insulin. Everything about me, the information about that is stored in these letters. Okay? So for example, you know, if there's one sequence, CAT, CAT, that may be a gene for purple hair. If there's another sequence, that may be the gene for yellow hair, and one for red eyes, and so forth. So different combinations of letters are for different traits. You can think of those letters as kind of like letters from the alphabet. How many letters in our alphabet, English alphabet?
27.
26. And they get put together in different combinations to make words. Is there any limit to the number of words you can make?
Yes.
No, you can make unlimited number of words if you're to invent your own. Could you? Is there any limit to the number of sentences you can make out of the English words?
Yes.
No, you keep combining them in different combinations. There's a limitless number of possibilities. Now, the same is true in our DNA. There's how many letters are in the DNA alphabet?
4.
Just 4. So there's only 4 letters, but there's millions of them put together. So the order you can put those letters in is unlimited. Now, let me ask you this. If you were to compare my DNA, you were to be able to read all the A's, T's, G's, and C's in my DNA, and compare that to the A's, T's, and G's, and C's in Tyler's DNA, would they be identical?
No.
No. They wouldn't be identical because I'm a different person. I have different traits than Tyler. Would they be similar?
Maybe. Like if you had like the same color hair.
Yeah, but how about even we don't, but they would be very similar. In fact, if you were to compare them, probably they'd be about 99.999% the same.
What's the 1%?
The 1% or the 0.0001% is what makes me and Tyler different from each other. But why would they be mostly all the same?
Tyler, tell me, are you guys like secretly?
Why? We're the same gender and we're the same species.
Oh, I
We're both humans. Therefore, most of our traits are the same. There will be some differences, obviously. That's why I don't look the same as Tyler. Good thing for him. And that difference makes us who we are. How about if I compare my DNA to a cat? Would it be as similar?
Yes.
Yes.
As similar as me and Tyler?
No,
Yeah.
No. But it still have a lot of similarities because a cat is a mammal, I'm a mammal.
But
So
you're
there's still a lot of similarities. If I compare my DNA to a
not
bee,
donkey.
okay, now it's going to be more different, but still actually more in common than
What
you
about
would
your
think.
daughter?
So who would have their DNA the most
You're removed.
closely to me?
Your daughter. Oh, your parents.
My sister. I don't have a brother, but my sister. Because we have the same parents, so we have the most similar DNA. Why not my daughter?
Because
Because you didn't have her.
So how much of my DNA do they have? Half. All right, so let's just look a little bit here at this picture, this video.
What?
Nothing.
Did you draw her?
No, I thought it was a different slide.
Yeah, okay.
No, that's a scary gorilla. Although I can see how you might make the mistake.
Stated Clearly presents, what exactly is a gene? Each one of our cells contains 46 strands of DNA. A single strand is made of millions of particles called nucleotides, and these nucleotides come in 4 different types, which scientists have labeled A, C, T, and G. A gene is a special stretch of DNA, a sequence of A's, C's, T's, and G's that code for something. A gene contains information for a cell to read and use, but what exactly does that information do? You might have heard that there's a blue-eyed gene, a freckle gene, possibly even an anger gene, but single genes don't literally make things like eyeballs or freckles or temper tantrums. Genes make proteins. Those proteins then interact with each other and all sorts of chemicals inside the body to build things like eye pigments, freckles, and mood-altering hormones. A single strand of DNA contains thousands of genes or unique protein recipes. Humans have roughly 20,000 altogether. Some genes are small, only about 300 letters long. Others are well over 1 million. The length and sequence of a gene determine the size and shape of the protein it builds. The size and shape of the protein determine the function that protein will have inside the body. Hemoglobin, for example, is a protein structure found in red blood cells. Its unique shape and size allow it to capture oxygen molecules when blood flows near the lungs, and then release them later when blood flows near oxygen-starved tissues. Pepsin is a digestive protein. Its unique shape allows it to break down food inside your stomach so it can be absorbed by the body. Keratin is a structural protein. Its unique shape and size allow it to link together with other keratin proteins to form hard structures like fingernails, claws, and beaks. Different creatures have different genes, which is ultimately why their bodies look and function differently. But one of the many reasons scientists believe all life on Earth is related is that the basic DNA code, the language of A's, C's, T's, and G's, is pretty much the same for all living things. Many creatures even share some of the same genes. You might not be too surprised to learn that humans and chimps, which are closely related, share 96% of their genetic code. But what would you think a lowly fruit fly has in common with a beautiful swimsuit model? Surprisingly, about half of its genes. Because all creatures use DNA in pretty much the same way, genetic engineers have found that if they take a gene from, say, a bacteria cell and insert it into the DNA of an animal or a plant cell, that animal or plant cell will then read the new gene and produce the bacterial protein. Engineers have mixed and matched the genes of different organisms to produce many new creatures, including corn that is toxic to insects but supposedly safe for human consumption, tomatoes that last up to twice as long in the grocery store before going bad, and a new form of bacteria that produced the human protein insulin which we then collect from these bacteria and give to people with diabetes who need extra insulin to survive. So just to sum things up a bit, what exactly is a gene? A gene is a special stretch of DNA, not the entire strand of DNA, just a segment that codes for something. Each gene is like a unique recipe, which usually tells a cell how to make a protein or a group of proteins. Different creatures have different genes, but all genes are written in the same basic DNA language of A's, C's, T's, and G's. I'm John Perry, and that's genes stated clearly.
Do you have a song for this?
No.
No. Look one up.
All right. So just to summarize what we just talked about today, I want you to answer the next 10 questions, and then we'll review them. So your next 2 slides have a few simple questions based on what we did. Go ahead and answer those.
Based on what we just did right now?
Yep.
I wasn't really, like, paying attention. I was taking a quiz.